the government is now under pressure to cut fuel excise to give everyday motorists a break. The current excise rate of 44.2 cents for every litre of petrol purchased, so it works out to around $5.6 billion for petrol and more than $11 billion a year in taxes for diesel. But much of that, of course, is returned to heavy transport users, farmers and misers via the diesel fuel rebate. But should this tax be scrapped to give motorists a break or not? Professor Robert Deutsch is one of Australia's foremost tax experts from the University of New South Wales School of Auditing, Accounting and Taxation. He joins me now. Bob, as always, lovely to chat to you. I just want to go first off, this whole idea about let's just cut the excise, give motorists a break, bring down the fuel prices. Sure. It's actually illusion, is it not? Because it's all just tax. It's got to come from somewhere.
Well, somebody's got to pay for the roads. And ultimately, at the moment, the fuel excise is what does that. So if we cut the fuel excise, even by half, for example, we'll have roughly $11 billion less in the budget for roads and road maintenance. Now, in these times, particularly after the floods, that's going to be a huge problem. The money's going to have to come from somewhere.
So the issue is that even if you do give them a break in tax, it's a tax cut. If you actually take that away, that limits the ability to give a tax cut somewhere else. Yeah. So is it a more efficient way to give a tax cut by actually cutting the taxes on people's wages, or to cut the taxes on their fuel? I know politically it looks better if you cut it on their fuel because people are so sensitive to it, but surely a tax cut on wages is better for the country overall.
It would be better. It would be better for the wage earners as well. We have far too heavy a reliance in this country on taxes on wages, and that's what should really be addressed rather than the fuel tax. The fuel tax, I think, is a perfectly reasonable tax if you recognise that it's for the purposes of maintaining the roads, and that's what it's all about. Without it, we're going to have to find that tax somewhere else.
So this is the federally funded National Highway Scheme in particular. That's where most of the money that has actually built our dual-lane freeways from Sydney to Brisbane and from Sydney to Melbourne, that's where that's come from, isn't it?
Not just built them, but maintained them.
Yes.
That's a recurring problem. So it's not as though you build it and forget about it. You've got to keep them going. That takes money.
Okay, so the second part about this is leading into the budget. That's one element which is political. A second one is whether the government makes another grand gesture. There's the third phase of their tax cuts which are coming due, which is genuine tax reform because it does take out a layer, or if you like, one of those tax scales disappears. But is there more of a grand gesture there that the government could say, right, we're just simply going to spend a whole bunch more money and hand out even bigger tax cuts to try and entice people to vote for us?
Well, it's possible. I mean, that's obviously taking a very cynical political view of the world.
Yes, because that's the reality in which we live, right?
That is the reality in which we live, and that may well happen. Of course, the bigger the tax cut, the less there is available for spending. They're going to have to find that money from other sources, which brings me back to the fuel tax. Cutting that, I don't think is a terrific idea, but certainly there is likely to be some sort of tax giveaway in the federal budget. Almost certainly.
Okay, so that being the case, is there any other way that the government, through the tax system, could give relief to communities, to households, to people who are, again, feeling this cost of living pressure? Because it is rising, and it's not just fuel. We spoke about rents there. It's coming in food prices, clearly, with wheat prices rising. So it's coming throughout. How do governments take pressure off families under such situations?
Well, there's lots of different ways that they can achieve that through tax rebates, and there's been lots of talk about whether the tax rebate for low and middle income earners is going to be extended even further. That's quite likely to happen, I would have thought, in the budget. So there's lots of different ways that the government could manage that, but all of it comes at a price, and I don't think we can forget that.
I've got to say, good to have you on the program. We'll do it again very, very shortly. Robert Deutsch there, Professor Robert Deutsch from the University of New South Wales.